Thank you, Cynthia. Can everyone hear me? How's everyone doing this afternoon?
Good.
Good, okay, like a vocal crowd. How's everyone doing this afternoon?
Good.
Okay, awesome. Sometimes we get sleepy crowds, so I just want to make sure we're good there. Alrighty, so my name is Dov Shamir. I'm the Manager of Education Entrepreneurship here at Mount Sinai Innovation Partners. As Cynthia explained, we're here to engage the Uptown and the broader Mount Sinai health system on ways to best interface and develop new technologies to make their way into to the patients and society as a whole. So just a little bit of our agenda for the evening. Some introductory remarks. We'll talk a little bit about, again, a high-level view of the commercialization at Mount Sinai. Then we'll talk about our fellowship program. And then we'll cap things off with our panel discussion with former MSIP fellows, led by Cynthia. Okay, so how many people here are at Mount Sinai? Just had to raise hands? Okay, a good chunk of the room. Keep in mind, we're having a lot of events this semester. This is the first of 7 of our entrepreneurial curriculum series. On top of that, we're having a bunch of other entrepreneurial events from other different departments as well that we're going to be collaborating with. So just take a look in your inbox. A lot of things will be coming your way this semester. So I'm just going to ask a general question to the room. How many of you here have had an innovative idea? It can be an invention, a concept, something you were just tinkering with in your head. Just a raise of hands. How many people? Any kind of idea that you'd want to in your head that you want to make a reality? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6. Okay. How many of you out of those 6 or 7 people actually pursued that idea? Okay, almost all the same people who actually went for it. Great. Now, your idea, it's great. You have that aha moment. You think you can, conquer the world. You're going to, save humankind, defeat all diseases, cure cancer, whatever, what have you. And then reality hits in. And you're like, how the heck do I do this? How do I go about it? What actually is my idea? How do I even, what are the next steps? What do I do? Who do I seek for help? Everything else. So there's actually a big group of challenges involved in taking that concept or idea or that innovation or discovery and bringing it to market or making it just a physical reality on some level. One of the biggest challenges is intellectual property. Now, many of you in here are scientists, and you probably are keep a lot of your information and data close to the vest, and you might be afraid that someone might steal your idea if you actually, release it on some level. That's a fair concern. So, how do you package that idea in such a way to become protected, if you will? One form is package it in the form of intellectual property and protect it using something called a patent, copyrighted trademark, or just keep it a trade secret. Just don't tell anyone exactly how you did it. So that's one challenge. How do you how do you accomplish this? How do you write a patent? How do you put a copyright together? Most people in this room, do you guys know how to do that? Raise your hands. How many people know how to file a patent? Maybe one guy in the back there. Okay. Good. So at least one person, but for the greater majority of us, we don't know how to protect our own ideas in the greater scheme of things. Challenge number 2, development and translation. There's 2 separate aspects to this. If we have that really good idea in the lab, that that initial idea of new ways of making light, say this candle idea, okay, and we want to then develop it into our final product, the smart device, the smart Bluetooth, home device. The question is, how do we get there in an efficient manner, and at the same time increasing value over the shortest period of time? That's one. And if you can get that far and actually make a product, great. But in the healthcare system, it's not just about developing that product, it's also about translating it so it can actually have real-world application at the bedside. So can you translate the bench to the bedside technology in any which way? Those are also a set of challenges. This is where Mount Sinai Innovation Partners comes in and why we exist for the greater Mount Sinai community. We help you accomplish those goals or those challenges or defeat those challenges our mission is to ensure that Mount Sinai discoveries and innovations are translated into real-world healthcare products that can benefit patients and society. We interface with industry and business in order to make that a reality. So we sometimes do this by technology scouting, tech evaluations, patenting, marketing, education, like this kind of event, coaching, mentoring in general, licensing and patenting those ideas, and basically every step along the way to make sure whatever you're doing in the lab can make its way then into big business on some level. And we actually have a great track record here at Mount Sinai in licensing diverse technologies. And that includes everything from therapeutics, devices, diagnostic, medical, just medical devices at large, and research reagents, digital health solutions. And again, it could be cross-platform, it could be in one space or the other. And for all you, again, it can even be for your fellow scientists. You create a new antibody in the lab, that could be commercialized. It's not just has to be in your lab. It could be disseminated to everyone around the world doing your research. So don't think that just because it doesn't have to end up in a patient's bed or an outpatient facility, it could be anywhere in the hospital system. It could be in the IT department. It can be in the cafeteria. Anything that has benefit for our patients can be commercialized and should be commercialized in order for them to benefit and use those items. And your innovation could be this next success story. So don't be shy about if you have an idea, if you don't think it can make its way out, it's worth pursuing. And sometimes when an asset or a piece of intellectual property is not necessarily licensable, or maybe it's not appropriate to be licensed, it could be then fitted inside a company. And we at Mount Sinai put together spin-outs and startups that have at the core of all of their business models a Mount Sinai asset. Whatever that asset is, it could be a form of technology, it could be a form of capital, doesn't matter. At the core of it, there's a Mount Sinai asset. And all these companies show examples of that. Some are a little bigger than others, leveraging different genomic technologies or artificial intelligence technologies, maybe biobank data. Some leverage actually the healthcare system itself. But these two on the bottom are two startup examples. Should resonate with many of you in the room. How many people here are postdocs? How many people here want to be professional scientists, PIs at some point soon? Okay, maybe not. How many people here are PhD students? Okay, so these two startups were actually founded by young scientists, young fresh PI just out of his postdoc, and Cardea Sciences was actually developed out of a third-year PhD student. And I can attest to this. This is very much possible. I did this at NYU when I was a second-year PhD student. I also went to my own tech transfer office and asked them to basically, did a disclosure form and basically penned in an idea as well. So you don't have to be a 20-year-old veteran. You don't have to be the director of your program. You can be literally PhD student, postdoc, doesn't matter. You have an idea, bring it to our office, and we can help translate that idea and commercialize that idea with you. So that brings us to how do you engage us? How do you actually find us and actually talk to us? We have three main mechanisms: disclosure forms, marketing and outreach events, and office hours. Our disclosure forms are pretty easy to find online. It's probably the most streamlined way to get in touch with us. Just go to ip.mountsinai.org, Google Mount Sinai Innovation Partners, doesn't matter. It's a pretty easy tab on Get Started here on the top. Click the Disclose Here button, and all you have to do is fill out these main 5 categories. Describe what your technology is, what research field does your idea cover, commercial interest, will anyone actually want to buy your idea, or invention or product, whatever it might end up being, research plans, what part of the development of your idea are you in, are you planning on doing any future research with it, have you disclosed anything publicly already, and that comes down to publications as well. Is the science real, is the technology already in the public domain? And from the disclosure, we will evaluate it for you. We will protect the idea if we think that if it's worth protecting, and we'll help grow the idea in multiple ways. Remember that picture I showed you guys of value versus over time? We'll not only grow the value of your idea by helping develop it further, but we'll also try to put together an intellectual property portfolio around it if possible, to make it even more valuable and grow that idea. And when ready, when it's mature enough, will help license or launch that idea. Office hours. This is something we're rebooting this semester, where we're going to have a member of our team be on campus 1 day a week to provide the Mount Sinai community with commercialization and entrepreneurial mentorship. You'll be able to schedule 30-minute appointment blocks. The location within the hospital is to be determined, but September time, you guys will definitely get some emails about it. Services will include, first and foremost, disclosure guidance, so basically how to fill out one of those disclosure forms so we can better help you. Resource information, funding opportunities, networking, application and pre-preparation, and pitch preparation, product and business development, and coaching and education. So one-stop shop, 30-minute blocks, just to learn a little bit more about these ideas, to push you in the right direction, to go seek certain resources, or to go see one of our members for a full meeting. In the pipeline, we have startup formation tools like accounting and legal advising, where we're going to probably bring in some lawyers and accountants who will donate their time pro bono and give you guys some, much needed advice on how to maybe form a company or maybe, explain the basic finances of a startup. So, our actual events. At Mount Sinai Innovation Partner, we put together an entrepreneur's roadmap that covers everything from a disclosure form to contracts and agreements to actually how to deal with angels and venture capital firms. And for the most part, these processes are quite intertwined. We have 4 main tracks, as you can see here, and they cover everything from basically licensing an idea to just increasing the value of a particular asset. For most of you, you're probably still here in red, needing to do a disclosure form or just generating your IP in the lab right now. You're making the discoveries, you're making the inventions as we speak. And obviously, if you wouldn't be in any good laboratory if you weren't looking for additional funding of any kind. So that's also something you're probably up for right now as well. But we are a one-stop shop, so any point along the way through through the Entrepreneur's Roadmap, we actually cover the key curricula along the way every semester. And the upcoming events for this semester, this includes more than our entrepreneurial curriculum. We have business development events. One that guys should point out is the September 26th. The Charles River presents what's it called? End-to-end integrated drug discovery and Sinovations, which you guys should also see. It's a very marquee event here. Funding opportunities. We're having 4 funding events this semester. Everything from commercial investment to non-dilutive funding to translational funding to even how to get funding from VCs and angels. And we're actually going to have a capstone event on that with our MSIP investment panel discussion with VCs and angels.
Also, I want to point out the September 21st Alternative Careers panel. Even though that's on the postdoc retreat, it's like PhDs are welcome to that, all right? And master's students, any grad students.
And lastly, entrepreneurship. You might not have an idea yet, and you want to grow that idea. We have opportunities with our fundamentals in entrepreneurship in 2 weeks, where you're going to learn all the key resources and tools you'll need to actually start putting together your own ideas and businesses, as well as our I-Core primer and workshop, where you'll be able to refine your business model and your ideas using lean launchpad methodology. In addition, there's a health hackathon on October 19th, and we also have a documents and contracts teaser where you'll learn all the different mechanisms of how to basically do contractual agreements via our group. And this one's actually going to be very special because we're going to have a mock term sheet agreement for that one, where our contracts team is going to go head-to-head and show in real time how a term sheet is conducted and agreed upon. So that if you want some theater, that one's going to be the one to come to. Okay, so now we're here for the fellowship program. So our fellowship program is designed to educate and engage early scientists, attorneys, and business professionals who want to learn more about the biotech and healthcare commercialization process. Our fellows get out of it training in commercializing scientific research, exposure to business development and law, enhancing your analytical skills, as well as interaction with industry thought leaders. It is broken down to 2 main parts. The first part during the fall, the Scholars Boot Camp, which participants will be engrossed in a holistic approach, and it begins October 5th and ends in early December. We're looking for, basically, in order to finish an application, please put together the online application form, upload your resume, your cover letter, and your letter of recommendation. Certain scholars will be invited back for the immersive program, where you'll get a hands-on experience of working with members of our team at MSIP in the following 6 areas: business development, contracts, intellectual property management, new ventures, finance and operations, and marketing and outreach. That program will begin January 2019. The fellowship curricula, we have a nice set of programming in store for fellows. The core fellowship, which is mandatory, is 2 to 4 hours a week of didactic classroom sessions every Friday. Highly encouraged is the commercialization curriculum and entrepreneurship curriculum. The commercialization curriculum is actually, you get access to the ICANN School of Medicine commercialization course modules, some of them select modules, that will complement the core program. And in addition, and this is more for people who are outside the Mount Sinai system, you'll get access to our year-round programming for that through the entrepreneurship curriculum. Now, those who make it into the immersive program will get at the hands-on curriculum, where you'll work one-on-one with your industry mentor, learn the exact skills and toolkit you need to actually get your job done. So business development, you might learn better how to put together a decision document or a tech brief. Maybe in finance and operations, you might learn how to put together certain cap tables better. Marketing outreach, you might learn how to put together better marketing materials, and maybe public speaking. That's always a good set. Just examples. You get the idea, but basically you're there for day-to-day operations. It's a 10-hour commitment a week. A lot of it can be done remotely. Sorry, guys. We're not going to scan again. Okay. And the continuing education portion, you'll get access to our year-round MSIP curriculum. We're a very inquisitive bunch. We're always teaching ourselves new things in MSIP, always giving new lectures and new talks to each other internally amongst the 40 of us. So you'll be getting access to that. And I think a very unique aspect of our fellowship program compared to some others in the city is you actually can get some one-on-one executive coaching. That is definitely, I think, a one of a kind in the New York area. So if you want to, build on your career, learn where you need to improve, and grow as a professional, that is definitely a nice perk to our program. Yeah.
The core fellowship curriculum, is that on site here? Is that off campus?
It is downtown on 42nd Street. Yeah. And eligibility. You have a strong technical background in the process of obtaining an advanced degree. Could be an MBA, JD, PhD, master's, doesn't matter. Or you're in the process of your postdoc. Interest in the field of commercialization, intellectual property, licensing, business development, and entrepreneurship. And again, I'm going to really stress the hours of commitment a week. You have to be on site for the Scholars Boot Camp. That is, for those about 8-9 weeks from October 5th to December 7th. Fridays, typically between 9 and 1 o'clock. Most of the time between 9 and 11. On site at on our campus on 42nd Street. And the hours kind of get up to 6 hours because you'll be doing homework, group projects, and by the time you hit the immersive program, you'll be doing remote work with all of our, with our industry, with your mentors. And again, that's just a typical workload, so it's going to end up being about 10 hours. Again, applications are due August 15th. I'm going to highly stress that. So lastly, our fellowship program transforms your career trajectory. So people who go through our program, end up with new skill sets in asset evaluation, market analysis, intellectual property, licensing, negotiations, valuation, just business development as a whole. And people who've gone through our program have ended up in venture capital, consulting, law, private equity, that have become very business savvy scientists, which is very important nowadays if you're going to survive as a scientist, and patent agents, and have become entrepreneurs, starting their own businesses. So now I'm going to actually allow those said alumni, led by by Cynthia Cleto, actually tell you their story and how they attain these skill sets and what they've done with them. Thank you.
Thank you, June. Any questions? on commercialization.
If you have a startup, is there a conflict of interest issue joining this program? Like anything that we need to sign or something?
You will be signing, like, basically, there are going to be confidentiality agreements because we will be releasing some tech that you'll work on. So
So it's
there
just like a
is
non-compete then?
confidentiality.
Non-compete NDA?
Sorry?
A non-compete NDA basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Yeah?
Have you seen MD students do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. So one of our MD students last year, she started this digital health app. It's a pain app. So she was working with some of the PIs at Mount Sinai, who, you know, they were trying to get it into startup mode, but, you know, all this other patenting, commercialization, tech evaluation, really useful skills for someone who's going to go through that. Even if you already have a startup, I think it's really good to know this stuff, intellectual property. The first thing that one of your lawyers is gonna ask you is, have you patented this, right? And the next step is, what do you do after that? But that's a basic thing for a startup. Yeah?
Do you have an idea of the acceptance rate for the fellowship?
So I can tell you that we have at least 30 that we're accepting. It depends on this year's cohort. It seems kind of a lot of people had interest, so like it could be anywhere from 25 to 50 depending on how big the cohort of applicants is. Any other questions? Well, why don't I invite our former fellows up to the panel? And then we can ask them more questions. All right? Sure. All right, so just as a rule, we have to press the button. Yes, that. All right, guys, so now we're gonna hear from our former fellows about their experiences. Is it too loud? Is it completely fine in the back? Great. About their experiences at MSIP. All right, so maybe we can start with folks kind of introducing themselves. So I can start with Nisha over there.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. My name is Nisha Rao. I was in the fellowship program 2 years ago. I am currently the director of Princeton Innovation Center Biolabs. And I have both a scientific and a business background. I've worked a little bit in biotech, went back to get my MBA, and it was during my MBA that I did this fellowship program, and really was very, very happy doing it, learned a lot, and can answer any questions that you have in a little bit.
Hi, my name is Brandon Hogsted. I'm now at NYU as I'm the business development manager for the Office of Therapeutics Alliances. We do early stage drug discovery for translating NYU's basic research into new drug discovery projects. I actually did my PhD in immunology here at Mount Sinai. I defended in October 2016, and I stuck around for about 6 or 7 more months finishing up the paper. And then I got my job, and I also did the internship with MSIP, and then I eventually got a job at NYU. And we can talk about that more.
Hello, this is Alessandro Piscechera. I'm currently Intellectual Property Manager at the Ludwig Institute for Cancer Research here in New York. I am a PhD in endocrinology and metabolism from Europe. I did a postdoc in Boston, and 4 days after starting my postdoc here, I applied for the MSIP Fellowship, and I got accepted. I got this nice experience, and I'm not here anymore, so that's good.
Hi, I'm Nabila. I'm actually currently a postdoc here at Mount Sinai in cell biology. I had my PhD in France in cell biology as well, and very academic background. I get exposed to more like the commercialization side of the science or business of science here at Sinai, And that's how I basically reached out to MSIP and organized a few events with them, and then applied for this internship and got accepted last year, and I'm still a fellow actually, currently at MSIP. And I can answer any question.
Great, thanks guys. So just to clarify, even though Alessandro's really happy that he's out of Mount Sinai, I'd like to stress that if you are at Mount Sinai and would like to be a PI who does a lot of commercialization, that is also very important for Mount Sinai. So, all right. All right, so I was gonna start off with some questions of my own, and then, and these guys were gonna answer them. But also, if there's any questions from the audience, please feel free to just raise your hand, right? I'm just gonna start off with a few, and then I'll check if there's any questions from you guys. So, why don't we start with, why did you do the internship? By the way, it was called internship before, but now it's fellowship. Why did you do the fellowship to begin with? What were your goals, and why did you think something like this would actually meet them?
So when I applied for this fellowship, I had, I had already made the transition. So I did have an academic background. I worked on post-translational modifications. From there, I went into biotech. In biotech, I started as a scientist, went into BD, and I really liked it. It was fascinating to me because it gave a big picture, which is exactly what I wanted. I spun out a few companies from a parent company that I worked at, and then I said, you know what, this is what I want to do. I got my MBA, and it was during my MBA that, I said, well, I've seen the biotech side of it. I've interacted with the academic side of it through biotech, but I want to see what the other side is. So how does academia interact with other entities in trying to commercialize what they have, and how well do they do it, and what are the gaps? So that was my thinking in applying for this position, and it gives you a really nice picture as to where things are left off at the bench and what is required in translating them from the bench to a commercial product.
By the time I finished my PhD, I had about 10 years of bench science under my belt, and from the beginning when I started research as an undergrad all the way through, I was a research technician, and then I did a PhD. My trajectory was getting closer and closer toward translational science, because I've started out studying yeast and pond scum, and I felt like it was very disconnected from actual application. So when I was a research technician, I was working in HIV, which felt very concrete, and the stuff we were working on was applicable toward HIV vaccines. And I remember having a conversation with my boss saying, okay, we just published this fancy paper, so how do we make this vaccine? He's like, I don't know, it's not my job. So that was really my intention, was going into this internship, was like, okay, well, that seems to be, MSIP's job. How do you take this basic research and turn it into an actual vaccine, an actual drug, an actual device? So that was what my goal was, and having gone through that process, you actually do learn, oh, this is how we take something that's a very abstract idea and set it on the trajectory toward becoming an actual product. So I think it's really great for that.
All right. Yeah, in my case, everything started while I was doing the PhD program, and this idea of IP and the commercialization was a little bit up in my head, but there was no opportunity to explore that. And as soon as I was in Boston, I took a night class about commercialization. I think the name of the class was Bench to Bedside, actually. And I did a little bit of work, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. I got an A too. That's not that bad. And then I thought that I want to pursue this way, in this path, and to learn more. because you may be a little bit overwhelmed when you approach this alternative path of careers and about the commercialization, because there are so many stuff ongoing, and it's not just about business development, it could be IP. So I wanted to be in touch with every single aspect to understand what was fitting more to my personality and attitude.
Yes. So pretty much similar. I had like a very academic background, and when I came here to the US, I was very focused on like getting a position, maybe a PI. But obviously, I'm pretty sure that you're all aware that getting grants and getting funding is very hard, and that's where basically I was facing when I started my PhD. So I applied to many grants and I didn't get any. And the frustration eventually kind of pushed me to try to understand how, or at least how to sell our research, how to communicate our research. And I kind of tried to be a little bit more open-minded and start to go to different events of career development, including the MSIP ones. And yeah, so basically that's how I got interested, and then realized that, like as Alessandro says, when you start being interested by this career path, you get overwhelmed because there's a lot of things that are out there. We don't know how we really will fit in there. We're not very confident on our ability of, adapting to this new kind of mindsets and business thinking. So I thought the best way to experience that and know if I was able or if I would like it is to try the internship. And I've heard a lot of good things about it when I asked other fellows and went to these events. So basically that's how I make the decision to go that route and tested it. And I've so far been very happy to go forward and try this internship. And we can probably answer why later. But yeah, that's basically the process.
Great, thanks guys. So just to give you a little bit of context, I believe that the three of you, so Nishta, Brandon, and Nabila, were all with a business development group, is that correct?
I was too.
You were too, but you specialized in intellectual property, right? So the business development group, that the sole purpose of that group is to look at incoming technology and evaluate it and think whether is Mount Sinai going to invest its money on this technology in order to patent it, right? And then later on license it to a partner. So that's the business development group. And the intellectual property group is anything that has to do with filing a patent, right? So that's Alessandro's specialty, fit to his personality. There you go. So my next question for you is, so you did the classroom sessions, the didactic portion, and then the hands-on experiential portion. What were your takeaways from that? What did you learn from those settings that were different from what you were learning from the lab?
So I think what this fellowship, at least what it gave to me, was the ability to put different things together. When you're in the lab, it's all about the science. It's you're looking at your experiments, you're looking to publish a paper, you're looking to graduate. But when you're commercializing, science is a big part of it, but there's a lot of other things that go into it, which are as important and maybe a little bit more important than the science. Because, for example, and Alessandra will speak to this, it's like you have your technology. Is it yours? How do you protect it? How do you make sure that it remains yours? When do you publish a paper? Do you lose worldwide rights? Things like that you don't really think about as a scientist, but as an entrepreneur, you have to think about it. Where are you getting your funding from? What are your milestones? How much funding do you need to hit your first milestone? These are things that I think make you more confident as a scientist as well, because you get to know the entire picture, you see the big picture, and you can then be in a position to make educated decisions on how you want to proceed. So those are, in a nutshell, the things that the program really brings together. And the nice thing is that you have expertise, even if you're not, say, we were in the business development group, but even if you have a question on IP, or if you have a question on modeling or accounting, there are so many people around that you could ask. And that's one of the really nice features of the program.
One of the things that I learned was that the scientific knowledge that I've been accumulating is actually useful, which is something that I was kind of worried that, like, oh, when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a PI, and then I went through all the disillusionment and uncertainty about what I wanted to do, and then eventually I was like, okay, in going into non-academic, non-traditional academic PI path, I discovered that, oh, actually, I can still I used all of my scientific knowledge in, like, I was assessing mouse models for cancers, which is what I did on the daily in my PhD. And I started learning things like, okay, well, you also learn there's things there's intellectual property that's valuable beyond just patents. So I was trying to understand what is there of value within something that was disclosed, a certain mouse model for cancer. What is this patentable, and if it's not, what is valuable? Because there's still a lot of know-how, there's a lot of assets that are there, and you start thinking about what is intellectual property and what do you have of value that is not just a patent. Because yes, patents are important, but now in my daily job at NYU, we're not just generating patents, we're also putting together data packages and intellectual property around know-how in order to create new startup companies. So, you start learning how that your science is useful, and there's more than just patents to all of this.
So when I started with the BD team, and then I moved in the intellectual property core. And the very helpful thing for me, it was learning that the two sides were merging together. Every single aspect of having a drug at CVS and starting from the lab starts with all this interconnection and the intersection between what is the business, what is the law, and you don't make decisions just considering what is your advantage from a law perspective. You need the business side, and the business side need absolutely understand what is your garden, I would call it, where you can put your seed for the IP and protect your invention. So that was, I would say, the most important thing that I learned, and which sometimes when you are in a lab, you just think about your experiment and this is the path I want to do, and you are a little bit of blindside, but you need to open your perspective and have a bigger panorama on whatever is happening surrounding you. So that was extremely important.
So, as I said before, with my background academic, I was kind of like thinking I'm probably just going to go to the first part of the internship and just learn how they do it to kind of like understand the system, but not necessarily, I didn't see already myself there or like really interested on doing it per se. But through the 3 months and the classes that we had, you have like how you can see how the science background that you have is valuable, because you actually evaluate actual science behind. And it was really interesting for me because I went back, we're all scientists, we are interested by the science, and as we specialize, we start getting too specific question, and we lose sight of other interesting projects that are going around. And this, I really enjoyed it, to see that I can see other research that I used to enjoy when I was doing my bachelor's, other subjects in immunology. I had a master's in immunology, and I completely lost these sites when I specialized in my specific field. And by the end of this internship, I could see myself doing the job, actually. So I decided I'm going to apply to the second part. And just to remind you of the frustration that I had of the grants, karma, I got the grant that I was applying for, just when I was applying for the second part. So just to say, that didn't dissuade me from following the internship. I'm still, I applied and got the second part. I was really learned a lot and grateful for this opportunity because it opened, it showed me actually, like other panelists said, that my background and my science is very valuable, and that also the business that's around science makes sense actually. It's not something that, it's not something that you won't be able to acquire and be comfortable with very quickly actually. So that's basically what both programs I think helped me to learn and to basically appreciate about my own background and my own expertise.
Great. I just want to reiterate that every single person mentioned, the importance of science. And so science we use in our organization at MSIP to actually do due diligence on how important a technology is and what is its, I would say, chances out there in the market, right? And then once we make that decision, we decide, we're going to call this an asset and we're going to invest in it because we feel that this is an important asset. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I wanted to open it up a little bit before I continue to the audience. Did you guys have any specific questions for the panel?
Yeah, I would like to ask, how hard was for you, the experience to get a job after doing the MSIP Fellowship?
Sorry, if you didn't hear it in the back, the question is how hard was it to get a job after the experience with the MSIP Fellowship?
So the one thing that's really great about being part of this fellowship is you have resources among your colleagues. And I know when we were part of our cohort, it was absolutely wonderful to bounce ideas back. People would just help each other. So I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy. You have to work at it, you have to tweak your resume, you have to put in the time, do the networking, put yourself out there. But it's very, very comforting and helpful to know that you have others that are rooting for you, they're helping you. And I think a lot of the times that's what pulled us through as well. And it's, you're making that switch, right? So you're in an academic setting and you're looking to do something a little bit different. So changing is never easy, but on the other hand, it isn't impossible, and you just have to put in the time.
I agree with what Nish just said, and while it's not easy, it does require a lot of work, and she said the magic word of networking. You really need to think about all the relationships you have with everybody that you've ever worked with, and not just somebody that you've met for 5 minutes at a networking session, but those you have to think about the people that you used to work with and the people that you met for 5 minutes at the networking sessions, and think about how you can make those connections to talk to different people and learn about new opportunities. Because I actually ended up learning about the opportunity at NYU. And I happened to have worked at NYU, so then I reached out to people I knew to try to find out more information, and that ended up being very helpful. So while it is, yes, difficult, it is doable.
Can I just add one more thing, is not to be disappointed. So even if it's something that you think it's, you're shoo-in for, if you get it, great. If you don't get it, don't be disappointed, because you just have to keep trying.
Well, network for me didn't work. I just I saw the mailing list for the postdocs here at Sinai, and they were looking at my foundation where I work now, an IP manager, and I applied. That's how I got the job. I know it sounds a little bit easy, but as a matter of fact, networking helps a lot to understand what are the duties of the job that you're trying to get. I talked probably easily with 50 lawyers before landing to this job, and that helped me to tweak the resume and to develop the right vocabulary when you go to the interview. And that is very important. And the other thing I want to say, the first interviews are going to be disasters. At least in my case, I was so nervous, and you know, from my perspective, sometimes law firms can be very intimidating, and you go there and you see this guy or this woman, they're making $2-3 million a year, and you know, you're a little bit overwhelmed. But thank God it went well. So yeah, networking works, but looking your email and not trash everything, that could be a good idea too.
Well, I'm still here, so I'm not going to tell you how I moved from here, but I think I know what would help, and at least to get your CV tweaked, because from academic background it's not really, especially if you want to apply to industry. And I think that the program with MSIP help us with that, with the coaching sessions that you will have access to. That was extremely helpful for me, so it helped me change my CV, identify where I have to put some effort, so getting more internships or some classes toward the goal that I had. And well, one thing I can say is that my CV get, like, now if I send it, I have replies, so I'm sure that it, you know, it did the trick to be at MSIP and get the help.
Can I add one thing? Commitment, I guess it's the right word for this. And you need to spend time on the resume, you need to spend time on writing the right cover letter, you need to spend time on meeting the people, and it's sometimes can be a torture because you're tired, the experiments are not going well, and I don't know, maybe your apartment has gone something wrong with your roommates, but you need time to commit to that thing. And if you commit and if you show the commitment, sooner or later somebody is going to reply to you. That's something that I got advised and I want to advise too.
The other thing also about networking, I think that's a very important. I heard it over and over, and I know that from our background, again, we're not really comfortable in these things, but I think MSIP also put a lot of effort to organize events and with small group and with target, let's say, industries. So that also, for me, was very helpful as well. So.
Yeah, a few of those events included, was it consulting with, who was that? BCG, yeah. So we brought in BCG. We also did sessions wherein Tony Jenkins went over networking and also invited Nisha. So there's a few of these kind of soft skills workshops that we'll do as well. All right. Any other questions? In the back.
What percentage of individuals were primarily scientific entrepreneurs who are interested in the program?
Scientific entrepreneurs. So what percentage of individuals were scientific entrepreneurs that went through the
In
program?
other words, their primary focus is really entrepreneurial as well as publishing and promoting research, the research landscape. But the program is not to advance in terms of tech transfer, although they may have later stage philanthropic interests that can bring them back to a university at a later point. But their primary goal is furthering their entrepreneurial research-oriented initiatives.
Yeah. So there's definitely, I would say, less than 10% of the folks that are like that. So the woman that I mentioned earlier who had her own pain app, she definitely was doing that. So she was an MD, right, that wanted to launch a pain app in a company. There was another gentleman from Rockefeller, he was a professor, and now he's commercialized his technology, and he is presenting at, this is Asaf, right? And he presented at eLab NYC, which is a pitch event in front of the whole of New York City life science ecosystem investors. So they do exist and they go through our program, but there's definitely less of a percentage of them in the program.
Thank you.
But which actually brings me to another point. Great that we're networking with people that we know, but it's really important to network with people that we don't know, meaning the New York City life science ecosystem. Go to the eLab NYC events, go to JLabs, go to Launch Labs, because you're going to meet folks that may have a mix of what you have, or maybe a part of what you have that you can supplement them with a scientific evaluation part, right? So that's important as well.
many people typically have like a full-time job? Like, you know, having a full-time job and maybe take like a vacation days, like every Friday, to join this like a boot camp?
Yeah, I think there were, so for our cohort in the past year, there was one gentleman that, no, two people that were working in startups. And then they would take like 2 to 4 hours on Friday mornings to go there. There was one person that was flying in, and in the middle of the course, it was too tough for him. He was, can't remember, South America, he was flying in from there, but he was from Argentina, but from NYU. He was an NYU postdoc, right? Yeah. So there's a few of them that do that. The didactic portion, you want to do that in person. And then the experiential can be kind of remote after a while.
How many people advance to the second portion of the course?
There's about 10 people last year that we advanced to the second portion. We accept 30 people for the scholars, the first portion.
And is there like a separate application for the second one?
We kind of get a feel, right? And then folks kind of, they tell you, right? This is something I want to, it's not a formal application, but it's something that they let me know, right?
I guess this question is specifically for Alessandro. For IP, how much has this experience helped you prepare for the patent bar if you've taken it, or do you have plans to take that? Because I saw that some of the outcomes were like a patent agreement, which would require that credential.
All right, tough question. So I'm actually studying for the bar. I haven't tried to take it seriously. What can I tell you about the bar? Some attorneys advise to do the bar before even going to job search. Some others don't advise that. It's really a matter of time, and it's a matter of understanding. It's a really tough exam, like probably the toughest that I have done before in my life. Again, I can't tell you what is right and what is wrong. The right is, the good side could be that you're going to find easily an interview. But the bad side is then the law firm is thinking that you know what you're doing. And you don't really know till you don't start to work. Because in the patent bar, you just actually, when you go to take the exam, you just know where are the chapters telling you, I don't know, I'm using a biochemical analogy, but like glycolysis is chapter 16. That's what you have to do. And you have just to search information. So you're really not learning the job doing the exam. So if somebody wants to do the IP path, I strongly advise to do this, to apply and to get to the second phase, to be very committed to the IP core eventually, to get a little bit of contracts, a little bit of everything if possible. But the bar itself, I don't think is going to help you to find a job, because you may get the interview, go there, start to talk, and you have a seasoned attorney that has 10 years, 20 years of experience. He's going to understand that you don't know anything. So both the side, the experience as the intern, the fellow, and the bar, I believe that will definitely be a big combination for that. But I don't think that the bar is everything. That's my thought.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice? Sold. All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending our event. We're going to have, 8 more of this in the fall, so please engage with us. We're going to be here for a little bit. Please ask us any questions that you might have right now. Thanks so much.